Before we start, I want to say that only 1% of you are subscribed. Please subscribe because at 1,000 subscribers, I will post a special video for you.
The announcement came with all the pomp and ceremony the Galactic Concord could muster. Broadcast across dozens of star systems, the annual Interstellar Games were heralded as a celebration of unity, strength, and the competitive spirit of the galaxy's diverse species. Every year, the Games brought together the best and brightest from the most advanced civilizations, with each species showcasing their finest athletes, tacticians, and thinkers. For humanity, it was an honor just to participate. As one of the newer members of the Concord, Earth's delegates were viewed as scrappy underdogs. They had shown ingenuity and resilience in the past, but they were still considered far from the level of the galaxy's true elite. This year, however, had a new twist. The Vorten Coalition, a species of towering battle-hardened warriors with an unshakable belief in their superiority, had issued a direct challenge to humanity. "Humanity," boomed Commander Zarnock, the Vorten leader, in the official announcement, "you speak of resilience and adaptability, but such words mean little without proof. Send your best to face us in the Games, and let all witness your true measure. Or remain silent, and confirm what we already know, you are unworthy of the Concord." The declaration was a calculated provocation, meant to embarrass humanity and reinforce the Vorten's dominance. It worked. News channels on Earth buzzed with debates, and the pressure on the human delegation was immense. At the human base on Zarathus Prime, the mood was anything but somber. Unlike the polished, disciplined preparations of other species, the humans had taken a decidedly unconventional approach. The base's common area was filled with laughter, clinking bottles, and the unmistakable hum of humans in high spirits. Ambassador Mike Callahan, a man with a reputation for his sharp tongue and unorthodox methods, stood at the center of the room, surrounded by an eclectic group of off-duty soldiers, engineers, and most notably, a handful of individuals who could generously be described as enthusiastic drinkers. Mike raised a hand, calling for quiet. "All right, folks, listen up," he began, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. "The Vortens want our best, right? Well, I've got news for you. They're sending genetically engineered super warriors, trained from birth to crush bones and break wills." The group groaned theatrically. Someone in the back muttered, "Typical overachievers." Mike held up a finger. "But here's the thing. They expect us to play by their rules, to try and match their strength with strength, their precision with precision. That's not how we do things." He paused for effect, scanning the room. "No, my friends, we're sending our drunks." The room erupted in laughter, with a few people raising their glasses in approval. The team Mike had assembled was unconventional, to say the least. There was Rick Big Red Dalton, a retired construction worker whose claim to fame was winning an arm wrestling competition at a bar while holding a pint of beer in his free hand. Next was Jimmy Kwan, a chess prodigy with a knack for solving puzzles while slightly tipsy. Sarah Mills, a parkour enthusiast with a reputation for finding shortcuts where none should exist, rounded out the group. And then there was Tom Tank Harrison, the crown jewel of the team, a dock worker with a legendary tolerance for alcohol and a knack for turning every drinking session into a spectacle. "Here's the deal," Mike continued, leaning casually against the table. "The Vortens think they're intimidating us by sending their best. But the truth is, humanity's best isn't about perfect discipline or raw strength. It's about adaptability, creativity, and yeah, maybe a little liquid courage." Jimmy raised his glass, grinning. "So what you're saying is, they've already lost, they just don't know it yet." "Exactly," Mike said, clinking his bottle against Jimmy's. The day before the Games began, the human team was invited to the official opening ceremony. The Vortens made a dramatic entrance, their towering forms clad in gleaming battle armor. Commander Zarnock led the procession, his imposing figure casting a long shadow over the stage. When the humans entered, the contrast couldn't have been starker. Rick sauntered in, sipping from a flask. Sarah cartwheeled for no apparent reason. Jimmy waved enthusiastically to the crowd, and Tank ambled in last, casually carrying a crate of Earth whiskey as if it were his personal luggage. The murmurs from the other delegations were immediate. "Are they drunk?" whispered a feathered ambassador from the Orion Confederation. "Is this some kind of joke?" muttered a scaled representative from the Zarthan Dominion. Zarnock's mandibles clicked in irritation as he observed the human team. "This is an insult," he growled, loud enough for the nearby delegates to hear. "If this is the best they can offer, the Games will be over before they've begun." Mike, standing just out of earshot, caught the sentiment and leaned toward Tank. "You hear that? They think we're a joke." Tank grinned. "Good. Jokes are funnier when they don't see the punchline coming." Mike clapped him on the shoulder. "Let's make sure we deliver." As the ceremony concluded and the delegations returned to their camps, the humans prepared for what was to come. The Vortons had challenged them, expecting humanity to crumble under the weight of competition. But Mike and his team knew one thing for certain: humanity didn't crumble. They adapted, improvised, and found victory in the most unexpected ways. The games were about to begin, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The Interstellar Games Arena on Zarathus Prime was a marvel of alien engineering. Built into the side of a massive crystalline mountain, the arena stretched for miles, housing facilities for dozens of events. The crowd, a diverse blend of species from across the galaxy, buzzed with excitement as the first day of competition dawned. The Vortons had made their presence known early, their warriors cutting imposing figures as they stomped into the arena in perfect formation. Their armor gleamed, their movements precise, and their confidence was palpable. They looked every bit the champions they believed themselves to be. Then came the humans. Led by Ambassador Mike Callahan, the human team ambled into the arena in what could only be described as a parade of chaotic energy. Rick Big Red Dalton waved casually at the crowd, holding a coffee cup that most suspected was not filled with coffee. Sarah Mills somersaulted past the group, eliciting a mix of cheers and confused murmurs. Jimmy Kwan, walking slightly out of step, adjusted his headphones and sipped from a reusable water bottle with a suspicious amber liquid inside. And Tom Tank Harrison brought up the rear, carrying a crate labeled Emergency Rations, Earth Whiskey. The contrast couldn't have been starker. "Is this their team?" scoffed Commander Zarnock, watching from the Vorton delegation booth. "They send entertainers to face us?" "Don't underestimate them," warned a Nade beside him. "Humans are unpredictable." Zarnock's mandibles twitched in irritation. "Unpredictable or foolish, it won't matter." The first event was a test of pure strength. Competitors were tasked with lifting progressively heavier crystalline weights and holding them aloft for as long as possible. The Vortons were the clear favorites, their genetic enhancements and rigorous training giving them an undeniable edge. Their champion, Krulak, was a mountain of muscle, towering over his competitors. He approached the crystalline slab with a roar, lifting it effortlessly above his head and holding it steady for a full minute before setting it down with a thunderous crash. The crowd erupted in cheers. Next up was Rick. Rick ambled up to the slab, rolling his shoulders and cracking his knuckles. He took a swig from his flask before placing it on the ground beside him. "Don't overdo it," Mike called from the sidelines, earning a laugh from the crowd. Rick bent down, gripping the edges of the slab, and with a grunt, lifted it above his head. His arms trembled slightly, but instead of showing strain, he broke into a wide grin and started humming a tune. The crowd began to murmur as Rick held the slab for 30 seconds, then 40, then 50. By the time he reached a full minute, matching Krulak's time, even the Vortons were watching with quiet respect. Rick carefully set the slab down, grabbed his flask, and raised it to the crowd. "Not bad for a guy who retired 10 years ago," he said, eliciting laughter and applause. The next event tested agility and problem-solving. Competitors had to navigate a sprawling obstacle course filled with traps, moving platforms, and puzzles designed to confuse and challenge even the most capable. The Vortons attacked the course with brute force, smashing through barriers and muscling their way past swinging pendulums. Krulak finished the course in an impressive 7 minutes, earning another round of applause. Then it was Sarah's turn. "Just don't get lost," Mike called as Sarah approached the starting line. "Lost." Sarah replied with a grin. "Please, this is a playground." She took off like a blur, darting through the course with an ease that left the crowd stunned. Where others struggled with balance beams, Sarah flipped and vaulted. Where the Vortons forced open locked gates, she found hidden levers and shortcuts. At one point, she even slid down a precarious chute, landing ahead of schedule while the judges frantically updated her time. Sarah finished in 5 minutes flat. The crowd exploded in cheers, and even some of the Vortons began to murmur in surprise. "She's cheating," Zarnock growled, his mandibles clicking angrily. "No rules were broken," the aide replied, checking the official logs. "She's just unconventional." Zarnock's irritation deepened. The final event of the day was a test of logic and problem-solving. Competitors were presented with a series of holographic puzzles, each more complex than the last, requiring quick thinking and strategy to solve. Jimmy Kwan stepped up for humanity, carrying his water bottle and humming a tune. He sat at the holographic console and leaned back casually as the puzzles appeared. The first puzzle was a simple pattern recognition task, completed in seconds. The second required manipulating 3D objects to fit into a complex matrix. Jimmy yawned as he rotated the holograms, finishing in half the allotted time. By the time he reached the final puzzle, the crowd was riveted. "What's he doing?" Zarnock asked, narrowing his eyes. Jimmy appeared to be ignoring the holograms entirely, sipping from his bottle and tapping his fingers against the console. "Is he drunk?" a delegate murmured. Suddenly, Jimmy reached out, pressed 3 buttons in quick succession, and leaned back again. The holograms flickered, and the puzzle dissolved, solved perfectly. The crowd erupted in applause as Jimmy stood, raised his bottle, and said, "Think outside the box, people." By the end of the day, humanity had secured victories in 2 of the 3 events, leaving the Vortons visibly shaken. Their confidence had been dented, their dominance questioned. Commander Zarnock glared at the humans from across the arena. "This isn't over," he muttered. Mike, catching the look, raised a hand in a mock salute. "You're right," he said to himself with a grin. "It's just getting started." The second day of the Interstellar Games dawned with a renewed intensity. The Vortons, stung by humanity's unexpected victories, were determined to reassert their dominance. Meanwhile, the human delegation reveled in the surprise and admiration they'd earned. At breakfast, the team gathered around a table piled high with various alien delicacies. Ambassador Mike Callahan sipped his coffee, spiked with a touch of whiskey, of course, and reviewed the day's events. "All right, team," he began, grinning at the eclectic group. "Today's lineup includes the endurance gauntlet, tactical maneuvers, and get this, a culinary showdown." Who knew the Vortons were foodies? "That last one's gotta be a joke," said Rick Big Red Dalton, polishing off a plate of something that looked like glowing blue pancakes. "It's real," replied Sarah Mills, scrolling through the event schedule on her holo device. "They're testing how each species interprets traditional Concord dishes." Mike leaned back, smirking. "Let me guess, their version will be terrifyingly efficient, and ours will be different." "Drunkenly creative," quipped Jimmy Kwan, earning a round of laughter. Tank, who had been silent until now, raised his glass of Earth whiskey. "Whatever it is, we're gonna own it." The team cheered. The endurance gauntlet was legendary. It combined physical challenges, such as running through dense gravity fields and swimming through corrosive liquid, with mental trials, including resisting sensory overload and maintaining focus under duress. The Vorton competitor, a seasoned warrior named Gralek, entered the arena first. Clad in lightweight combat gear, he powered through the physical stages with ease, his genetically enhanced body shrugging off the environmental hazards. The mental trials proved more taxing. Gralek stumbled through the sensory deprivation chamber, his frustration visible, but he recovered quickly, finishing with an impressive time. The crowd roared in approval. Next was humanity's turn. Sarah stepped up, drawing skeptical murmurs from the audience. "She's too small," one alien delegate remarked. "She's human," said another dismissively. Unfazed, Sarah approached the starting line. As the timer began, she launched herself into the course. Where Gralek had relied on brute strength, Sarah used agility and creativity. In the gravity fields, she leaped strategically, conserving energy. In the corrosive liquid, she found a current to ride, shaving precious seconds off her time. By the time she reached the mental trials, Sarah was grinning. Inside the sensory deprivation chamber, she began humming softly, a habit she'd picked up during years of parkour training to stay focused. It worked. Emerging unscathed, she sprinted to the finish line, beating Gralek's time by a full 30 seconds. The crowd erupted, and even some Vortons couldn't help but nod in grudging respect. The Tactical Maneuvers Challenge was a battle simulation designed to test strategy and adaptability. Competitors were placed in identical holographic war zones and tasked with neutralizing threats while achieving specific objectives. The Vortons, unsurprisingly, excelled at this. Their representative, Commander Vexer, executed a flawless assault, leveraging overwhelming force and precision tactics to dominate the scenario. When Jimmy stepped up for humanity, many in the crowd openly laughed. His casual demeanor and ever-present bottle made him look wildly out of place next to the disciplined Vexer. As the simulation began, Jimmy immediately broke protocol, ignoring the established objectives and charting his own path. Instead of engaging enemies head-on, he used unconventional methods to sow chaos in the simulation. He hacked into the enemy's communication network, causing their units to turn on each other. He set traps that funneled opponents into choke points. And when the final objective required retrieving a valuable artifact, Jimmy bypassed the firefight entirely by reprogramming a drone to deliver it to him. The simulation ended with a perfect score, leaving the judges scrambling to confirm its legitimacy. "How did you figure that out?" asked one incredulous delegate. Jimmy grinned, taking a celebratory swig. "Easy. I cheated, within the rules." The final event of the day was the most unusual yet, a culinary competition. Each team was given the same set of alien ingredients and tasked with creating a dish that represented their culture. The Vortons approached the task with their signature efficiency. Their chef warrior, Torvek, crafted a dish that was equal parts fuel and art. It was a dense, protein-packed meal designed to sustain a soldier for days, presented with meticulous precision. When the humans stepped up, the judges were less prepared for what came next. Tank took the lead, tossing ingredients into a makeshift grill with the flair of a backyard barbecue champion. His dish was a chaotic mix of alien meats, earth spices, and a splash of whiskey for good measure. "What are you doing?" asked one of the alien judges, bewildered. "Making magic," Tank replied with a grin. The final dish was a sizzling platter of smoky, spicy meat served with a side of what could only be described as galactic nachos. Tank presented it with a flourish, saying, "We call this surprise. Because even we're not entirely sure what's in it." The judges were skeptical, until they tasted it. The bold flavors, the unexpected textures, and the sheer audacity of the dish won them over. When the results were announced, humanity took first place. By the end of the day, the humans had secured victories in 2 of the 3 events, once again surprising the galaxy. The Vortons, who had expected to crush humanity, were now openly frustrated. Commander Zarnok glared at the human delegation from across the arena. "They mock us with their antics," he growled. "They win with their antics," corrected one of his aides. Mike, catching Zarnok's glare, raised a glass in a mocking toast. "To us," he said with a grin. As the humans returned to their quarters that night, their laughter echoed through the halls. They knew the Vortons were rattled, and the best part was that humanity hadn't even played all their cards yet. Tomorrow would be the final day of competition, and the humans were ready to show the galaxy exactly what they were made of, again. The final day of the interstellar games dawned with palpable tension. The humans had proven themselves resilient, creative, and downright unpredictable, much to the frustration of the Vortons. What was supposed to be their moment of dominance had turned into a battle for redemption. The last 3 events promised to be grueling, each designed to test the limits of endurance, ingenuity, and diplomacy. The stakes were high, and the arena was packed with spectators eager to witness the climax of the games. The day began with a multi-environment race that traversed the wild alien terrain of Zarathus Prime. Competitors faced dense jungles, scorching deserts, and treacherous cliff climbs, all while navigating checkpoints and surviving on limited supplies. The Vortons sent their most conditioned warrior, Threx, a soldier bred for long-distance endurance. His strategy was simple: power through every obstacle with brute force. Humanity's representative, Sarah Mills, approached the race with a different mindset. "It's not about being fast everywhere," she said to Mike before the start. "It's about knowing when to conserve and when to push." The race began with Threx taking an early lead, his massive strides leaving competitors in the dust. Sarah, however, paced herself, observing the terrain and making calculated decisions. In the jungle, she climbed vines instead of hacking through dense underbrush, saving time. In the desert, she avoided the direct path and followed a shaded canyon, reducing fatigue. By the time the race reached the cliffs, she was closing in on Threx, who was visibly slowing. As they neared the finish line, Threx made one last push, but Sarah used her parkour expertise to scale the final wall faster, reaching the checkpoint just seconds ahead. The crowd erupted in cheers, and Sarah flashed a grin as she returned to her team. "Told you it wasn't about speed." The second event of the day was a test of diplomacy. Representatives from each species were given a fictional interstellar crisis and tasked with negotiating a solution. The challenge was not only to present a viable resolution, but to convince a panel of alien judges of its merit. The Vortons sent their most eloquent commander Zalrix, whose reputation for strategy and oratory skills was unmatched. His proposal was efficient, logical, and ruthless, typical of Vorton policy. Humanity's representative was none other than Ambassador Mike Callahan, who strolled onto the stage with his usual casual demeanor. The scenario involved a dispute over resource-rich planets between two rival species. Mike's solution was unconventional. Instead of dividing the planets, he proposed a shared management system that incentivized collaboration over competition. "But how will you enforce compliance?" asked one of the judges skeptically. Mike grinned. "Simple. Humans have a saying, if you can't beat 'em, bribe 'em. Offer better terms for cooperation than for conflict. No one turns down a good deal." The room erupted in laughter, but the judges couldn't deny the practicality of the solution. Humanity scored another win. The final event was the most anticipated, a drinking contest. Designed to test endurance and constitution, it involved consuming increasingly potent alien liquors. The Vortons, confident in their superior physiology, sent General Varnock, a legendary warrior known for his unshakable fortitude. Humanity's representative? Tom "Tank" Harrison, the unofficial king of Earth's drinking circles. Tank strolled onto the stage carrying his own bottle of Earth whiskey, much to the crowd's amusement. The contest began with relatively mild beverages, which quickly escalated to liquids so potent they glowed and emitted faint sparks. One by one, competitors from other species dropped out, their constitutions unable to handle the escalating toxicity. By the final round, it was down to Tank and Varnock. Varnock lifted his glass, downing the fiery liquid with a grimace but maintaining his composure. The crowd cheered, impressed by his resilience. Tank, unfazed, raised his glass and grinned. "Cheers, big guy," he said, tossing the drink back as if it were water. The final drink, a concoction known only as starfire essence, was placed before them. Varnock hesitated, his massive frame trembling slightly. He raised the glass, but before he could drink, his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed onto the table. The arena erupted as Tank stood, raising his empty glass triumphantly. "And that," he slurred, "is how you do it, folks." The games concluded with humanity taking first place overall, a result that left the galaxy stunned. The Vortons, who had entered the competition with confidence bordering on arrogance, were forced to acknowledge humanity's ingenuity, adaptability, and sheer tenacity. As the human team gathered on the winner's podium, Ambassador Mike Callahan addressed the crowd. "We came here as underdogs," he began, his voice carrying a mix of humor and pride. "No one expected much from us, and honestly, that's just how we like it. But here's the thing about humans, we don't give up. Whether it's solving a puzzle, climbing a mountain, or out-drinking a 7-foot-tall warrior, we find a way." The crowd erupted in cheers, and even some Vortons couldn't help but applaud. That evening, as the team celebrated their victory, Mike raised his glass in a toast. "To humanity," he said, his grin wide. "They sent their best, we sent our drunks, and we won. Again." The team laughed, clinking their glasses together. Across the galaxy, humanity's reputation as an unconventional but formidable contender grew. They weren't the strongest, fastest, or most disciplined species, but they had proven once again that their greatest strength lay in their ability to thrive in chaos and turn the odds in their favor. And for the humans, that was the sweetest victory of all.